At the heart of the Bosco Institute Ibadan, we now respectfully acknowledge the purpose of our great institute. Reverend Father Dr. Tolulope Eric Akim Ogomi, as please, Father, you're welcome. Please let us go to the Father. And also, we want to warmly recognize the Dean of Student Affairs in abstention, Reverend Kingsley KG. Please let us go to Instagram Father. The Father extension. Joining him, we want to recognize the presence of the registrar of the institute, Ms. Toby Onyewule. Welcome. Please let us go to Instagram for her. Joining her, we want to recognize the presence of the secretary of our institute, Mrs. Regina. Please let us go to Instagram for her. And welcome. Also, we want to acknowledge the presence of all our lecturers in the institutes, the head of the Department of Youth Studies, Reverend James. And please let us go to Instagram for Father. Father is there. He has an appointment to catch up with. Our appreciation also extends to our lecturers and scholars of the Bosco Institute. Our senior lecturer, Reverend Father Dr. Anthony Okonkwo, and please let us go to Instagram Father. Father, you're welcome. Also, we acknowledge all other lecturers and also the head of the Department of Philosophy, St. Augustine's University, Associate Professor Dr. Philip Edema, also senior lecturer in the institute. So you're welcome. So please let's put hands together for our lecturer. Also, we want to acknowledge the presence of the Student Representative Council, the SRC, the president and all the executives. Please let us put our hands together for them. We are welcome in our institutes and we appreciate the presence of all other students. Please let us put our hands together for ourselves. You are welcome once again. With this reflective foundation laid upon our academic community duly acknowledged, we shall not proceed with the anthem. So please may we all stand to take the national anthem. Would you please? while standing, we shall take institute anthem. 1, 2, go. The Bosco Institute of Philosophy, Center of Bosco. Alright, great Don Bosco scholars the place number 6. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, everyone has been given the program activities for our symposium. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge all the keynote speakers for today's program, the provost of the Institute, Reverend Dr. Solumope Kimboroni Eric, the manager, engagement and operations, Sir David Mussolini Foundation, the Institute of Nigeria. Also, one of our key speakers for today's program, Reverend Dr. Francis Adeyemo, Institute of Theology, Seminary of St. Peter Paul, Ibadan. Dr. Philip Then, Associate Professor, Head of Department of Philosophy, Augustine University Lagos. Ladies and gentlemen, it's always note I want to invite the provost of the Institute to give the welcome address. Please let us put the hands together.
Good morning to you all. Before I proceed with my address, first the clarification. The keynote speaker, so first is the person of the Reverend Dr. Adeyemo. These are key speaker, the keynote speaker. Others are those the panel supporting what you have shared with us. As the distinguished scholars and the symposium participants, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is with profound joy and sincere gratitude that I welcome you all to this symposium, holding in honor of our late Bishop Michael Fagun, a man whose ministry and writings have not only shaped Christian discipleship, but have also called many to think more deeply about what it means to exist, to choose, to suffer, and to live responsibly under the gaze of God. Today, we gather not merely to celebrate again, but to engage in the legacy of pastoral wisdom, moral seriousness, and spiritual depth that continues to challenge our times. I wish to recognize with gratitude the distinguished persons and institutions that made today possible. First, we acknowledge our moderator and coordinator, Dr. Philip Ademola Olayopo, who is representing and coordinating the West African Transitional Justice Center. So we appreciate your leadership and scholarly guidance in moderating these events, especially for inspiring this event today. We owe a lot to Dr. for making this day a reality. Secondly, we are honored to have as our keynote speaker Reverend Dr. Francis Adelabu from the Institute of Theology, Seminary of St. Peter and Paul, Ibadan, Nigeria. Father, we are grateful to your intellectual depth and personal competence, and especially as someone who is best qualified to give us this keynote address because of the personal experience with our own bishop. I will look forward to your keynote intervention as a major highlight of today's symposium. We also warmly welcome our distinguished speakers and panel contributors, Mr. Emmanuel Arikan, the manager and engagement and operation, Sir David Osobe Foundation University, Nigeria. Also, Dr. Philip Epema, Associate Professor and Head of the Department of Philosophy, Augustine University Lagos. We are truly privileged to have such a rich and diverse pool of contributors, pastoral, academic, institutional, and philosophical, gather around one central theme and one remarkable figure. Permit also to acknowledge the administrative support behind this event and the gracious coordination of communication and logistics. We especially appreciate the role of the registrar, Ms. Noah Topione, Dr. Bosco Institute, and also the SRC under the leadership of Stephen Igwe. Your presence here today is itself a testimony to the enduring relevance of Bishop Fagun's witness, testimony to the power of thoughtful scholarship in preserving spiritual legacies, and testimony to the conviction that faith must always be accompanied by reflection. We are here because we believe that the life of the church is strengthened when memory becomes wisdom and when admiration becomes interpretation. This symposium, which is the main one in our institute, the Bosco, is particularly significant because it invites us to engage Bishop Michael Fagun not only as a pastor and leader, but also as a thinker, one whose spiritual reflections, especially as found in his work, Titbits, touch the very heart of human existence. In those brief for waiting meditations, Bishop Fagun speaks to the human condition with remarkable seriousness. He does not merely offer devotional comfort because a leader into moral maturity. It does not flatter the soul in awaiting it. In fact, one will say that Titbits contains what philosophers would call an existential tranquility, a deep concern for what it means to be human in a world marked by uncertainty, self-limitation, and choice. Your family reminds us clarity that is both personal and philosophical, that a human person cannot live carelessly. Existence is a task, not a pastime. Life demands responsibility. At the center of this question is the strong system that each person must claim ownership of their life. It teaches this characteristics directness, that every action matters, and that no one can live lightly by escaping responsibility. We do not only pass through existence, we form it by our decisions. Now perhaps this is one of the greatest gifts of our group of us the church in our day, the recovery of seriousness. The age tempted by superficiality, where people sometimes desire religion without repentance, spirituality without responsibility, and prayer without transformation. Bishop Fagun's message remains a prophetic summons. He urges us to examine the inner life, to resist hypocrisy, to shun pretense, and to live authentically for God. He wants in substance to be the danger appearance and death. What matters is not only what you do, but who we are becoming. We must also acknowledge that the vision's reflection do not ignore the pains of existence. They recognize the fragility of human lives and the uncertainty of worldly security. Bishop Fagun starts close the Christian essential tradition. He accepts the darkness of the world, but refuses to hand the last words to it. Indeed, in this vision, meaning is not always immediate, it is discovered. Life begins to make sense not when something disappears, but when the human person endures with faith. Ladies and gentlemen, this symposium is therefore more than an academic exercise. It is an invitation to conversion of mind and heart. It is an invitation to revisit the legacy of a bishop whose life and writings compel us to ask the most important questions, such as, are we living responsibly or merely existing? Are we authentic or merely performing? Are we pursuing meaning or merely chasing comfort? Are we choosing what is right or postponing it? In Catholic thought, such questions are not optional. They belong to the moral and spiritual grammar of salvation. They are part of our privilege towards holiness. And Bishop Michael Fagun, through his ministry and writings, see that no life is truly Christian without moral seriousness, interior truthfulness, and courageous decision. As we begin this symposium, I encourage us to engage Bishop Fagun's legacy with both reverence and intellectual rigor. Let this be a gathering where scholarship sets faith, where analysis gives gratitude, and where memory leads to renewal, where we celebrate his achievement, but also allow his blessing to challenge us. For the purpose of the symposium is not only to praise a great man, but to learn from him, and in learning to become better ourselves. Once again, I warmly welcome you all. May our discussion be fruitful, our reflections sincere, and our gathering filled with grace. May Bishop Michael Fagun's legacy continue to inspire authentic Christian living and responsible human existence. Thank you, and God bless you.
Please, we can do better than that. Please tell us to speak. That's what it's like. Thank you very much, distinguished guests. Reverend Fathers, members of staff, and students of the Bosco Institute. We shall now proceed with the citation of our Lord Bishop Fagun, the Reverend Shepherd of God's people, and the servant of the gospel. It is therefore most fitting in this symposium to pause and honor the legacy through the formal citation. And this citation will be graciously delivered by student Kingsley on. So please let us listen attentively as he comes forward to give the citation. Please let us put our hands together. Good morning, great Don Bosco scholars, and good morning to all the high esteemed dignitaries present. It is with great honor that I honor this privilege to take the citation of a renowned Christian and intellectual personality. The citation of late Bishop Michael Fagun. This citation honors the life, ministry, and profound contributions of a bishop whose decades of service in the church have left an indelible mark on the faith, education, and spiritual formation of countless lives. Bishop Michael Fagun underwent his educational and Christian formation in Nigeria. Beginning from his priesthood, Bishop Michael understood the sacred call of ministry as an opportunity to serve God's people, guide them on the path to salvation, and ensure that the light of Christ reach all corners of the diocese. He was not just a spiritual leader, but a guide, a teacher, and a builder of both the body of Christ and structures that support it. His episcopal ministry was a clear and unwavering commitment to this vision, a vision that sought to balance the spiritual with the practical, always pointing to the ultimate purpose of eternal life with God. A pillar of his lasting legacy is his scholarship and catechesis. His writings, which explore Christian spirituality, scripture, and liturgy, offer insightful not just into doctrine, but into the experience of faith. But beyond his original works, it is his translation work that has made an immense and enduring impact. The complete translation of the Jerusalem Bible into Yoruba, alongside his translation of other key liturgical texts, was a monumental act of intellectual and spiritual service. Through these translations, he made the word of God accessible to countless Yoruba-speaking Catholics who now read and meditate on the scriptures in their own language. This invaluable contribution has strengthened the personal devotion, enriched and provided the foundation of its generations of believers to deepen their understanding of the faith. In addition to his theological contributions, his visionary leadership and education sets a new course for evangelization. Understanding the deep connection between faith, formation, and education, he builds a network of Catholic schools that sought to develop not just the intellectuals, but also the moral and spiritual. However, In 1975, during the period of military rule, the federal government unjustly took control of 106 Catholic primary schools and 7 secondary schools. This loss was devastating to the diocese, as these schools were vital centers of youth formation and evangelization. Despite his resilience ensured that the educational work of the diocese was restored and even expanded. Under his leadership, 13 new nursery and 13 new nursery and primary schools were established alongside 7 secondary schools, all of which have continued to operate with excellence, nourishing future generations in both education and faith. But the achievements of this ministry were not simply about building institutions. They were also about enduring hardship with grace and faith. His years in the episcopacy were not without personal and communal struggles. In addition to the external challenges posed by the loss of educational institutions, he faced the tragic death of 5 priests and 2 members of a newly founded religious congregation in car accident. This emotional toll of these losses was immense, yet he remained steadfast in his leadership, always placing the needs of his flock first. He experienced the painful loss of vocations, with several priests stepping away from ministry. These difficulties were not easily overcome, but they were met with courage, faith, and constant trust that God's work would continue despite its challenges. Through it all, he maintained a pastoral heart, understanding that the role of a bishop is not only to lead, but also to guide, to support, and to be a source of strength for the people of God. As his episcopal career came to a close, his greatest joy was not in personal accolades. His greatest joy was not in personal accolades, but in the knowledge that he had prepared others to take on the mantle of leadership. His vision for the future of the diocese was fueled in the appointment of a pastoral bishop who was ready to take on the responsibility of leadership, continuing the work that he has started. This citation celebrates a life dedicated to building the church, expanding its reach, and deepening its understanding of God's word. His writings, his leadership in education, his tireless service, and his ability to withstand adversity, a legacy that continues to shape the thousands of beyond. Even in his retirement, his influence remains and his work continues through the event. The schools he founded and the countless faithful whose lives were touched by his example of service, sacrifice, and faith. This life of service is a statement towards its means to follow Christ in all things, to lead with humility, to teach with charity, and to endure with hope. As we reflect on his life, we give thanks for his ministry and ask God to grant him eternal rest, knowing that this legacy will continue to bear fruit for generations to come. Thank you.
Todos los años fuera por mí.
If we can do better than that, please let us know. Well, thank you very much, sir, for that enlightening citation, which has reminded us once again of the noble legacy left by the bishop. All right, ladies and gentlemen, in the spirit of intellectual fairness, I want to welcome our keynote speaker from our today's symposium, our program as we join together. Permit me to invite on stage our keynote speaker, Reverend Father Dr. Francis Adelabu. Please, Father, you're welcome. Please, with a standing ovation, let us welcome our keynote speaker. Let us put our hands together for Father. Father, you're welcome. Please, as we all have program activities, at 11 a.m., we shall have the interactions. So please let us pay attention, and as the passage are beginning to us, as well as we make contributions when it is time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, fathers, dear brother, fathers professor, dear brother.
It's a pleasure to be in your midst this morning for this lecture on Bishop Michael Fagun and Existentialism in some of his thoughts. I thank the organizers of this symposium, authorities of the Bosco Institute of Law, especially the provost, Eric Akimobi, in partnership, of course, with the coordinator of West African Transitional Justice Center, my dear friend, Dr. Olayo. I will say, my dialogue with Dr. Olayo in the days and weeks following the death of Bishop Michael Fagun brought about this entire idea that probably we can dig deeper into his thoughts. I'm Father Francis, and I was ordained in 2007. Just barely 2 years after my ordination, I was posted to work with Bosco, and I lived with him. I lived with him for quite a period of time. So I knew him because that was not my first contact with him. I've been with the bishop since 1996. Precisely from my days in the medicine. Well, I will leave Ibadan here and go down to Adoikit and live in his house. So I knew him for quite a number of years. So immediately after his death, I began posting because I was saddled with creating that website Sir Lawrence individually, Shola Mojala, recently from the priest from the Warren Diocese, he was published about the vision in the work of phagology. They almost unanimously agreed that Bishop Fagun was a bold, practical, kind, humorous, humble, clever, intelligent, and humane shepherd. He was a man that would always tell you, never say, I thought that, if you call it, why did you do that? You say, no, man, I thought that. No, never say, I thought that. Always say, I know that. That is, be certain in your knowledge. Don't presume, don't guess. And if you are not sure, ask questions. So it was always a very practical and down-to-earth person. That is, you must be sure. Sure not just about events outside, but about yourself. Be very, very sure. So never say, I thought that, but I know that. And he will always say that one cannot practice religion more than your background. That is, your faith can never be more than your culture. Whatever your culture, not just whether you like anything. No, that's not what it is. Culture has your total personality. That product of your history, your background, your way of life, your principles, your values. That's humanity in you. In fact, your faith is built on your character, on your person. We always believe in that. And I believe that in life, you always have problems. That in fact, everyone is battling in life. And therefore, no human person is perfect, and no human person should be condemned. That is why if you tell Baba, the driver is stealing, he will laugh. He said, but you know he's stealing, right? You ask people, you know he's stealing. Say yes. Very good. Then they don't make sure that nothing that can steal is exposed. That is, don't lead him into temptation. Don't lead him to steal. Because he believes that the next person you will employ was. So once you know, then you can ask and you can always contact. And therefore, you always work with everybody and anybody. Always work. Knowledge for what worked and what was applicable and will never give it useless words, abstract thoughts, or intimidating cowardice. So our focus today, existentialism. Existentialism emphasizes individual freedom, responsibility, subjectivity. It asserts that existence precedes essence. In this, in a way, religion and our faith would differ in its life because we believe that God made us for a purpose. And God knew us even before we were born. And therefore, coming into this world, we have to fulfill the purpose for which God created us. So it is religion, in a way, differs from that picture that existence precedes essence. Meaning that humans are born without a predetermined purpose. That's what the existentialist dictum says. And man must create his own meaning and values through choices in an often meaningless or absurd world, focusing on lived experience, authenticity, and confronting core human conditions like anxiety, freedom, and mortality. Existentialism stresses that we are radically to define ourselves unlike objects with a fixed nature. The core ideas of existentialism include hands on anxiety, which we find in all these habits, taboo, quality of recognition, the dread or ease that comes from realizing the total freedom and responsibility. We also have core ideas like authenticity, living genuinely, by acknowledging your freedom and creating your own values rather than conforming to external pressures of bad faith. And this comes out in the real life. The real life 6 and 11 of Bishop Fagun. Because as a young bishop in the 1980s, in the 80s, of course, it was ordained in 71, was made the Augustine Bishop, the substantive bishop of 1972. But by 80s, the missionaries began to be expatriate missionaries began to leave his houses. What would they do? So he had to raise local clergy and religious. Now, it took some young women and took them to another religious institute. And he wanted them to be formed in that religious institute so that they will not come back to his houses because these are not things from his houses who understand the language of his people and they can come back to work in his houses. But what happened? When these women arrived in Europe and they trained, after 3 years of training, postulancy and leadership, the congregation wanted to keep them. Because they didn't want to give them back to the bishop. They said, no, now they are our sisters. Now we are going to post them to where we believe they will be of our gospel speak. I was taking that part and go. That was what the agreement in it. And what did he do? He said, no problem. We severed this agreement and he brought back his ladies. Now here he was thinking about 4 to 5 young women. Professing first professional. What will you do with them? That's how he began the Sisters of St. Michael. The archangel. So taking this thing that, well, I wanted them to work in my house. What do I do? So he began with that thing. And that was a man who never feared to begin something. But gradually working out from 1986, by 1998, they became, they got the Dawson right, the Bishop of Dawson right. And later on, 10 years, 15 years down the lane, they got that particular right. Today, they are in more than 15 countries in the world. Be modest when I say that. 15,000 is happening. And in various parts, working in almost every part of Nigeria, and England, and US, and we can continue to mention source regulation that just began out of the need to recognize the local workers. And that is that kind of person that was authentic to himself. If you read his autobiography, you also read becoming a Christian on just authenticity, on how it was very well developing houses with a bold in hand, trying to ask for funds, and he met various responses. It was in all particular points, it was in Canada. They had a big function and also were taking and everything. They were shrinking, came out of the days, that the mayor of this town is helping. That state bishop came from Africa and when he got back to his residence, got back to the rectory, he opened the envelope. What did he find? $10. $10. And pictures are already taken as circulated. Where's another place? And after speaking and celebrating so many masses, because the people celebrate masses and speak to the people. After speaking and celebrating masses and all that, he came back to the church and he said, how much? And he gave them everything in their accounts. And he said, okay, well, the church takes 5% of whatever you paid, because the church authorized this mission. Number 2 is this that please, so you from where again? So from Nigeria. But when we look at the map of Nigeria, we saw that Nigeria is a serious oil producing country. GDP presently is 0.0, and we gave you all the statistics. This was way back then. And they were like, your country is actually almost richer than our country, but we don't have good oil. So, I mean, I was saying, go back to Amos. Where Amos was sent back, go back to Tekoa. This is better. Go back to your home. That's how he went back and was like, no, I must make something out of my own. That was the end of his international travels. He began to work at home and to sensitize these people that no, don't wait for the missionaries in order to feed. Don't wait for the missionaries in order to feed. Don't wait for the missionaries in order to have this religions. Start buying stuff. Start on your own. And sincerely, from the 80s, there's, in fact, the last essay in the next houses in 85 places. Throughout the 90s, most state-grown expert missionary.
And up to today, no single establishment. His diocese, Ekiti, is probably one of the best dioceses in the entire Nigeria, if not Southwest. Southwest, if not entire Nigeria, still be prepared to be totally certain that establish nationality. But this man took his destiny in his own hands. Meaninglessness, another core idea, is existentialism. The universe was brought inherently offer meaning. Humans struggle to find purpose in an infinite. Freedom and responsibility. That's another core idea of existentialism, because there is no blueprint. You are completely free, and you are also responsible for your actions. And that is seriously evident in the life and the autobiographical written of God, of Bishop Michael Fagun. He was a man who never shied away responsibility. We have key thinkers of existentialism like Bishop Simon de Beauvoir, Albert Camus, Martin Heidegger, Friedrich Nietzsche, to mention the first, which we want to briefly touch on, Soren Kierkegaard. He mentioned three stages of human existence. The first is restrictive. This phase is defined by pleasure, egocentricity, and it's a shallow state, right? Because it dwells only on the external, that which is external, not internal, not that which is evident, observable to human experience or senses. The ethical second phase, that focuses on universal laws and it prioritizes what personal responsibility, a sense of beauty within human practice. The last phase, according to Kierkegaard, is the religious phase, which details the deep of faith, not human understanding. Personal relationship with the divine to whom one feels obligated. Another solid existentialist, who presents the existentialist thoughts is Martin Heidegger. And briefly, we can look at his three layers of human existence as defined by time as reality. The first is the time, which is characterized by awareness of the existence of the world as different from objects that have self-consciousness, your design, your being, the self-consciousness that I exist, different from other objects and an independent existence. Again, talks about time as being fundamental to the understanding of being. You can't understand being outside time. Time for Heidegger is very, very much integral with the notion of existence. Talks about the past, which creates a foundation of existence, but the beings devoid of choice. Is the present that potentialities aspire towards actualization with daily experiences. And of course, in responsible of time, Heidegger also talks about the future. It's a projection of possibility, including towards death. Measures briefly inauthentic living as existing within the world without taking responsibility for your choices. That is, when you lack that self-consciousness and you lack the existence of time, and both time and existence, then you become what? Inauthentic, you're living while you're not responsible. You're not responsible for your existence, you're not responsible for your choices, you're not responsible for your actions. And the authentic living is that proactive engagement with mortality and making meaningful choices. We move on to Jean-Paul Sartre. Jean-Paul Sartre talks about existentialism, is humanity. Talks about that which I agree as theologian. So he is one that properly spoke about existence preceding essence, that existence precedes and rules essence, that humans are born without purpose. And it's only when you are born that you now take responsibility to make meaning out of life. That is, life is just like a void, that shapeless void, what Genesis 1 people to that's not a void, nothing, emptiness, that need you, nothing. Because it's only when you are born, when you start existing, that you now try to get a shape out of this nothingness. According to Sartre, freedom is what you do with what has been done to you. Freedom is what you do, what has been done to you. As far as men go, it is not what they are that's interesting, but what they can become. So it looks at your possibility, what it can become, that ability to create something out of nothing.
Every existing thing is born without reason. It prolongs itself out of weakness and it dies by chance. And of course, lastly, we also have briefly Friedrich Nietzsche, who is popular for his what is verdict, calls for reason of morality based on human values, sees value as embedded in life and was derived from it, and also that humans must be intentional in making choices and they must be responsible for their choices. Again, the speech of fatality, what he functions as amorphacy, that is, love of faith, embrace faith, F-A-T-E, as it comes, embrace all aspects of life as it comes, even when you have to suffer, embrace it, but don't shy away from whatever life brings your way. Now, looking closely at the Titbits, we want to look at some quotations, because that's random choices of Bishop Fagun. They are like quotations that we gather together. Certain this compilation. The first one we want to look at is that life as a continuum of strife. Life as a continuum of strife and struggle. That even in the search for ease and happiness, man continues to struggle and to strive. The human race is repeating. One strives after ease and happiness, and this is done by toiling. In toiling, what is up against cause and difficulties. And yet, all successive and progressive efforts never fully surmount the pains of human condition. So, they always have this idea of Sisyphus, according to that writing in 1971. That life is continual struggle. And when you see it in his own weakness, he walked to the end. He's always believed in working, overcoming self and reaching beyond his limits, so to say. He never limited himself. He reached beyond that opportunity to make something of the new times and new challenges he faced. And there's something also in him, because I did with him 2 years before he started. By the age of 73, started out was 2008, remember that he was a priest for 60 years and he was a bishop for 54 years. And so, for a house he had been living for over 35 years, it's not easy to get out of that place. It's not easy to get out of the place that you've been living for 35 years. And so, at the age of 73, this man did that. Every Wednesday, you just practice and overnight back, and you go to the retirement house to spend the night. At the beginning, they know. Even that bishop's house, how much you can do? And then the following day, of course, they will come back. Just like, I don't know which was the points. Is that telling himself? With that discomfort of going to a smaller space, with that discomfort of going to a lonelier place, with that discomfort of going to a place that and he did that for 2 years. By the time he got to 2010, when he got to the age of 65, half of his soul was already in the retirement house. So on the announcement, was already got to a party at the age of 73. So by the time it was time to retire, he didn't have difficulty in moving. That was a man who was realistic and was pragmatic. He understood that it's time to bow out. He was not, he didn't have a chance to take that surprise. And that is a huge lesson for me as a person. Knowing when to do and knowing when it is time. It's time, it's time. And Baba kept working on this. The second quotation is a quotation of fulfillment. That fulfillment at the end is only found in God. We live by grace, and we exist only to the help of grace. Our efforts are like birds and very inadequate in the light of the utopic demands of Christian life. And yet, God loves us to attain this height through grace that He never denies us for. And here we're talking about what? About celibacy. Celibacy is difficult. It's a struggle, continuous struggle. That's a realistic man. He never portrayed himself as a champion, as a warrior. He admitted the challenge of this vow that it was a show that only the grace of God. And you see that coming up again and again in social biography. Lack of final fulfillment on earth. That's what churches. The actual problem of the church in the world today is not the problem, it's not primarily the problem of celebrities. But celebrities are able to be the easier express human discomfort that is easy to grasp by friendly human nature. It's easy to know when someone is unmarried. Yes, it is only a symbol, not the heart of the problem agitating the church. Why? Because married life itself can be no less the problem. So saying that Christians are married, that's not the solution to the problems we are facing as a church, even in the services. The fact is that many a man of God are frustrated as their Sicilian labor, seemingly unable to give a final solution to the echoing of the human condition. They seem wearied of rolling the boulder up the hill while it constantly falls back. They didn't want to remain where one had always started, still searching for happiness here on earth, certainly lack of final fulfillment here on earth. Why? Because it is not the earth that grants happiness. It is God Himself that grants happiness. So, to be able to accomplish that, you have to rely on your own power or strength for the earth. In the next one, it talks about the irony of life. The irony of life. He looks at speeches and all that. And he was like, it's every one person. There's a certain world. I get some are comfortable while some are uncomfortable. It really gets philosophical here. He says, human greatness can be measured by human wisdom. The pauper and the destitute contradict the worldly belief. The mad person by the wayside on the sidewalk detracts from the intellectual genius. The humble and the humiliated indicates the littleness of the triumphant view. These are two philosophical thoughts. It gives contrast and the loss of them. The spotted leper points to the nothingness of the beauty queen. When shall a human person be totally free from contradictions? The imbalance of material and moral values can be corrected, but can the human being completely conquer disease and decay? That even man, with the height of his achievements, yes, disease returns man back to us any time. The next one is a reflection of the quotation of Gerald Lever. Gerald Lever is the pen name of a man who was called Gerard Labouni. Gerard Labouni was actually a French poet and essayist. He died at the age of 46 from suicide. And here, Fagun meditates on his words on pain and trials. On his wish to be the last person to undergo the agony of pain. Yet human life cannot be free from pain. We find solace for pain right in our hearts, not outside. That is, we are expressing pain, but we can't find the solace, the comfort, the release and the escape from pain from outside. No, we cannot find it in our heart. All the same. It's saying that you only overcome pain by going back into your interior self and recalling to yourself your source and your origin. If you know fully well that you are not of this world and you are not meant to be for this world, then you take solace from God who made you. That's the only way you can make meaning out of the pain that you're experiencing. The way it ends is quite striking. But the less we turn into ourselves, the less the intensity of the pains of life. That is, the more we turn into ourselves, the better we are able to, work with and reduce the strife and scourge of pain. And the next one talks about the pursuit of happiness. He meditates on the passive nature of happiness. That life is full of ups and downs. That happiness can never be eternally trapped or imprisoned. That is, one can never trap happiness. Even if you experience moments of happiness, you can't keep it always. And he ends with this that abiding happiness in this life is an illusion. Of course, it's very similar to the quotation that in times of prosperity, don't forget misfortune. And in times of misfortune, don't forget moments of prosperity. Lastly, it talks about religion as an open for the people. Let me just At the end, Bible challenges every one person to take their destiny in their hands. It challenges everyone to work hard and make meaning out of life. It challenges every man to embrace the raw and the truth in order to make it into what is fine and shaping. We will never surrender to the tyranny of social, political contexts, but rather fabricate order out of chaos and make music out of noise and beauty out of nothing. But it is only by so doing we are able to achieve the purpose of which we were created. Thanks for your attention and thanks for listening.
Please, we can do anything like that. Please, we can do anything like that. All right, Father has done justice to his presentation. His presentation has reminded us that existence is not merely about passing through life, but it's about living an authentic life meaningfully. And also, he has given us the philosophical perspective of how various philosophers have spoken about existence and life. This time, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the principle of existence comes alive with interactions. It is on this note, the floor is open. I want to invite everyone else to give our own contributions. If there is anything you want to ask or to clarify, or you want to ask a question or a little contribution, please, this is the time to do so. If you want to ask any question, or maybe there's a particular passage or a philosopher that you wish to clarify, contributions are welcome. Kindly feel free to engage respectfully to enrich this meaningful discourse. That is the beauty of our symposium today. Questions, clarity, contributions are welcome based on the passage that we'll be giving at the time to prepare. If anybody has a contribution to make, this is the time to make such contribution. And also, those online, if they have any question or maybe contributions to make, possibly or they want to clarify some things. So please, you are welcome. You can also make a contribution or comments, and we shall take them accordingly. Dr. Bella, please, we don't need to have discuss 70s and early 80s, 90s, are deeply connected with the in terms of economic success, human flourishing, anguish, poverty, the corruption, and suffering. So, we are talking about I mean, the God can learn from this one of God, this short. And that's the one thing that I want to learn the class really are doing that. That the church itself does in the church. If you are in the bishop behind the church, because the church becomes that's not the opposite to become the bishop. And what does that mean? It's that as a leader, the Lord doesn't do that to be because of the country or the material things that is requiring churches that we see around us. They are not because of the church or they are not because of what we have to offer. But this
John Fagun's Titbits for Christian and what Christian represent. It shows the character of nature, the character of the teachings of God, and the character of the for education. And that's why we talk about it. It's not because we want to be their kids, because we choose, I don't want to teach. So, I guess because and for those who are listening to work outside that we have to be grateful and be grateful to your family for giving us a lot to chew, a lot of the reflect on, a lot of people not at once. They also have been to contact. Don't think that admits spreading discourses in the two candidates. No, the two will not be together. You saw that in this. Giving a person, telling us things of what is the intelligence. And the leader's intention means that you tell it always and tell the truth. Tell the truth. And in that, leader became one out better opportunities. He was not saying, but that therefore, just being the of setting what we run. I didn't know that it translated from French to the language. I have become a language runner. I'm telling you to say, I'm not really what is a man? A runner, what he did a lot. Therefore, of course, who are coming to him from here, Bolivia, that administration around the world. It's time for us to pick one or two lessons from your families, Christian and Christianity, and see how we can bring them into the temporary discourse and tell the people of God the truth. Don't tell them the truth because of what people because of money or whatever, but tell them the truth because of what. After that, there is another him. Therefore, I want to tell you that people tell us. What I mean is that by the nature of what you is really free. It's a kind of heaven. You are in I don't know you are in heaven. But the true heaven is the one that they're going to judgment. They're going to compare what they have done in their life. I'm sure your family is teaching of his character or the performance for the Christian society. Now, what can we do? After, what can we do for it? That's words and it's just our way of it. Talk about that. I think for books for people and because I started to begin. I was looking at sorry, and I'm about the situation I just did that. So I just obvious. But you know, what is your showing there is very, very interesting. And I'm going to put that place after what's that. And the first one is we do a lot of terms of educating what kinds and kinds are. So I don't know their friends, but yeah, I'm debating like a kind of water astral clouds because something and the growth of proportion. And that is what we should be doing. That's why they say themselves, healthy, it's important, it's a critic, and it's not area there. So that we can know what we are doing. That is true. It's just the truth. And it's best culture. I tell them, thank you very much. I continue to pray.
Alright, so before we have the break, more contributions, questions, clarification before we go to break. for contributions. If you have any question or maybe there's clarification you wish to make, please you can ask. All right, so please come forward. Come forward.
Thank you. Okay. Thank Father for your good presentation. So I'm here to ask a question for better understanding. According to the presentation you made, you said that Bishop Fagun emphasized on the importance of personal spirit in one's spiritual journey. So I want you to reconcile this with the concept of divine grace, especially in the context of the existential freedom, where individuals are responsible for creating their own meaning of life. Second question, we know that existentialism always suggests that individuals we have this opportunity to create our own meaning in life. So, according to the message of Bishop Fagun, how does it challenge or support this idea, especially in relation to Christian teachings on purpose and destiny? Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for your question. The first one was on the responsibility as against the reality of grace can never function without ambition. Grace can never function without ambition. That is, the person first has to admit there will be need for grace. That is, grace is always given. For reception of grace is based on admission of need. For example, remember the Garden of Eden. God called, said, Christ was you eat of the fruit? He said, yes. And the woman you gave me. And all that. He said that he kept passing the ball. Woman and all that. And God called the woman and said, God did able to take pains to ask the serpent and apples. That's what I had to give some response. And so, even if God wanted to forgive them, but they did not admit the need, that they were not taking responsibility for their action, rather, they passed the ball and shifted the blame to another person. And that is where grace cannot function at that point, because they are not admitting their need. Responsibility and divine grace. And the next one also was about what was it about? Okay, purpose and destiny in Christian teaching. Well, in Christian teaching, destiny, according to St. Paul, First Timothy, is that God made us, God desires that all men should be with him. That is, God desires to save all human persons. So the salvation of Paul is the destiny of God for the human world, that all should find their fulfillment in Him. And that is not also far-fetched from the purpose, because the purpose is that, according to our passage, to go into God and to serve Him, to be happy with Him. That is our purpose now as Christians now. To know Him, to serve Him, to be happy with Him. So that's fulfillment in our Creator, because it wasn't created, we separated from the Creator, then the Creator cannot find its ultimate purpose, cannot find its ultimate fulfillment. Why? Because the fulfillment and the purpose of the Creator is in the mind of the Creator. It's in the mind of the Creator. And that's why the gospel completes that you have read us for yourselves, so you are arrested. You all be behind this
All right, thank you very much, Father. So please, at this moment, before the break, we shall have a question online. Then after we will have a break and resume the second session.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I started the time speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I speak now?
Speak. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Can I go ahead?
Yes.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
Wait. Just. Is it connected? It's not connected. Somebody's watch is. It's not from there.
Is it from the Zoom? Is asking?
Yes.
Yeah, can you speak, Mr. Gabriel?
Yeah. Okay. I should go ahead, right? Can I go ahead, please?
Yes.
Okay. Good. My name is Gabriel Ayaya. It's a pleasure to join this conversation from here. I want to appreciate Father Adelabu for that wonderful presentation. I have two questions. First, I want to find out, as a curious-minded person, what can we really say informed, the existentialism of, Bishop Fagun? Was it informed by the idea of spirituality or by the idea of humanity? Because Bishop Fagun was a bishop that was outstanding. He was exceptional among his folks. So what can we really say was the secret of that exceptional attribute? That's the first question. I don't know if I'm audible enough.
Yeah, please go on.
Okay, good. So the second question is, Father Adelabu talked about the idea of authenticity, you have to be your true self and all of that, freedom and responsibilities. I'm just curious to know from his own point of view, if there is any hierarchy of authenticity, and in the context of Bishop Fagun, because as we all know, we see people that tend to portray what they are not. People say what they say what they don't. They say what they don't mean, and they mean what they don't say. So I think that there is a hierarchy of authenticity. So how can Bishop Fagun's life help us to extract the ideology of the multiplicity of authenticity in the midst of finding the true self? These are the two questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Question. First,
love of God and love of man, love of God and love of neighbor. Because he was the man that was deeply essentially with his own inner self. At least he had a deep inner life, he had a deep spiritual life. I wrote a book chapter because we published on 58th and last principal of nation. It's a learning system for published a book before senators, Bishop Fagun, Bishop Bishop Abel, Bishop Joe, and Kuti. So I wrote a book chapter on Bishop Fagun. It was there that I noted in that book chapter that this was a man that never changed with his prayers. Something I saw myself. Never, it didn't ever pass. Okay, not going to just say that conference. So it was the man that was saying, he was in touch with his inner self. Was in touch with his inner self. As I said, he never deceived himself, he never really deceived anybody else. He will tell you that. As apparently as he was, he will always hold you in his life, and he will hold you in all many times. He will tell you how it is and how he feels. So when he's standing on this, we know that it's annoying. So he was the one that was put to himself. Again, we live in one hour of 20. We live in
first of all, he emphasized seriousness and responsibility. If you read that word, you see that was indeed very seriously. That word seriousness is not just to take it in the lighter sense, but to be taken as an intellectual seriousness that everyone must embrace in order to do back to the full. And again, we can quickly, around this one time, we can quickly see the difference between staff and Bishop Fagun. For staff, responsibility is the body of absolute autonomy, that you are autonomous. So you are responsible. You are any other being that you are answerable to. But for Bishop Fagun, who was also that you are free, just like staff, you have to make choices and your choices will determine who you are. But at the end of the day, that's a different stuff. That in our responsibility, there is a dignity of answerability before God. That you are answerable before God. Yes, you are free to do what you like, to make your choices, become who you want to become. But at the end, you have to answer before God. What you have done, then you must take responsibility at that moment. This is one major difference between him and Jim Bossa. And so, life, he says, must be taken seriously because something that not invent meaning. And I share with you, it means that human life is morally weighty. So there is a serious moral responsibility on all of us as we live life. Every day, you must keep that at the back of your mind that whatever I do, I will be the compass of morality will be used to look at how I have made my choices and how I have lived by my choices. And so in this world, he rejects that
You are the one who make yourself. We don't make ourselves. So he said that meaning in life is discovered through faithful living. Faithful living. So this is the first thing that I want to share with you. The second one has to do with Abba who also was known as a very serious existentialist, and at the end of the day, the way he died also reflected something he embraced. So he argued about Camus that human beings don't for meaning, and we are searching for meaning, which is true. We are looking for meaning in life. But he said that the universe remains silent, it's not very us. So there is much publicity absurd. So he sees everything as absurd, absurdity in life. That is everything is meaningless in life. This is the conclusion that the Camus made in his efforts to reflect on human existence, human life. And so, in order to create this absurdity, he was calling for revolt. Yeah, you have to revolt. If you live lucidly and define, you have to break that without hope of ultimate meaning. When you are revolting against life, you are not sure of any meaning. Because at the end of the day, everything is meaningless. You will die and you are going nowhere, nothing, not standing. That's so like that. And then Bishop Fagun, on the other hand, we try to get this view. Because, first of all, he shared the idea that life is fragile. Life is very fragile. You plan, disappointments, you are not sure of tomorrow and all that. These are things that we face in life. So there is no guarantee that tomorrow will be better than today. So there is no security. That is how life is. But we still make plans, and sometimes your plan will fail. But Bishop Michael says that if you don't need to revolt, we must not do so as Abba Camus. We encourage us that we just live, don't go for anything, just live today. And so Bishop Michael did not encourage revolt, but he called for repentance, he calls for faith, he calls for endurance and compassion. And he says that even when you suffer in life, your suffering is not meaningless, but your suffering can be redemptive and also an opportunity that opens you up to God Himself. And so his ideas remain Christian, and he has been able to bridge his ideas with what Christianity should be, that you can be a serious essentialist and still not go against the Christian faith. And we all need to be hopeful that tomorrow will be better, and that is why we have Bishop Michael as an option, better than all this atheistic philosophy that denies the relevance of God in our life. You can be a serious thinker, you can live life with its challenges and still be hopeful because you know that God runs the affairs of your life. So these are great contributions that I have. Yeah, patent the brief summary of what Father said. Father has informed us that Bishop Fagun can be considered as a Christian existentialist. And when trying to contrast some of his views with two non-existentialists, Dr. Sark, of course, who was atheistic in his approach, and of course, Abba Camus as well. In contrasting these views, Father was able to tell us that while Sark was talking about autonomy in terms of responsibility, to be free is to be autonomous, and to take responsibility for your life is to be autonomous, and therefore you are not answerable to any other thing outside of your existence. You are the one to provide existence. What I say that the partner is not in line with this view because as a Christian existentialist, despite the need to take responsibility for your life, defining and shaping it, it's the end
is not finite in its sense in this world. The end is teleological towards the goal in heaven. So you're answerable to something that's external of this world, or someone or a being that's external of this world. Secondly, it talks about our most views on the search for meaning by humans in this world. Now we're continuously searching for meaning. But in this search, the world appears, or the universe appears to be void of meaning. It appears that we cannot grasp this meaning, in the world. And so what does Camus invite us to do? He says that there needs to be revolt, there needs to be some sort of absurdity in order to find, to wake up the world that appears morbid in terms of creating answers to life and giving it meaning. And so, Bishop Fagun does not also share this view in totality. Yes, he agrees that there are challenges in the world. He agrees that the quest of meaning in the world is filled with some sort of obstacles. But in the end, he's saying that being resentful is not the way to go. Life is fragile. There's suffering in the world. But as people of hope, being a clergyman, as people, there's hope in the midst of this chaos. There's meaning in the apparent lack of meaning in the world. And so, in searching for it, rather than resorting to absurdity or resorting to further chaos, we should try to define our existence by the thing that's outside of us. So, I hope I'm going to represent Father's Bishop. I'll now invite second panelist, Dr. Edema, to share his own thoughts. Please, can we appreciate?
Thank you very much for doing this to bring together. And for everything industry. And there are things like what is perspective. Now, talking about the ideas, the thoughts of the family, from the alliance ideas and his way of life and values to take the concept of the colonial personalist. So, when I was I identified my impression as elements of human dignity, the Bishop Michael Christian existentialism. Now, the fact is not only therefore, the person becomes the right concept. I think Japanism, Christian, Bishop, sick. This is where when they move exercise human dignity, especially from the body sector. See, if you look at his works, even from the actual person, love our spirit, the body, and all the society does. The whole of science, human dignity, the place of man in the society, and this doesn't be what I told you, brother, that if you look at the various scholars, Pastor Mooney, for example, he talked about that man is the center of all discourse. That if you take man out of this, nothing makes meaning. So the idea of God makes sense because man is at the center. It's man that talks, that relates. Man that talks about freedom, authenticity, flourishing, paying something reward. So, but the Bishop Fagun's responses and his thoughts and ideas between the 70s, early 80s, and the early 90s, he focused on one, the family as the cradle of a society. Like I said, the family is the cradle and the soul of the society. It's the family that makes the society what it is. And if you look at your board second, and the body is of the nature. No just aside and everyone is looking at lots of aspects in this context. Talk about the fact that the state event, the place of the family, then the society, the village, and the states. So the family for Japan is key to any progress, evangelism. Talk about family, talk about respect for life. And of course, don't talk about that don't really like John was saying that it's not like it's still beautiful. Each life makes meaning because it is a gift from God. And it was subtracted when it comes that one is not a means to an end, one is an end in itself. Therefore, no idea of reducing man as a means to an end, or as a tool for anything. Slavery, abortion, all of those, it condemns because they do not decide one person that God has created with image and likeness. Do not forget that Bishop Fagun was writing as a bishop of the priest, and therefore we cannot take the fact that most of his works in the Bible reference word scriptures and canon disciples, church document. And of course, the church document today that we have, we look at them historically. But people to talk with women, you see that church document emphasizing the role of man in society, the role of man in evangelism, and the role of man in government and development. So it's a thing condemns actions, science, technology, and that that defines human. But they say the things that are further demand that respect human life. And our will to live coupled with human body to self-preservation demands that we respect other lives, not to align with desire. We started the of abortion and the reckless, even drivers, you have no respect for what people say. Look at as at 1961, talk about reckless drivers who have no for what safety. Because again, when you drive reckless, you destroy you kill people. Look at what happened to Joshua just December. This man was talking in the 70s. This is just in the 60s. The things was making are issues that you want backing. If people are reckless at those 70s, we don't have respect for good business. So we made a transaction, we have a portion, then it's listen. How do we use our road? How responsible are we to bring the drive even on our own? You know, when you drive this part, you are endangering the life of the other. Therefore, you have to respect and value for yourself and for the other. You know, you also talk about the culture. Talk about the idea that you should always practice and moderate authority and global culture. And of course, culture is one thing that shapes not for people. Look at the works of Camus and anything. You are going to be a cultural. The context of the writing was shaped by what? The environment. Bishop Michael was writing within the better situation and was talking about culture. Why? Because it was in the 2007. It was sort of out of culture. But the things that the knowledge of that was not, in tandem what we see a lot of things. And today, it's not possible. It's not possible today. Say, make regulars teaching, I don't think that they want to be knowledge. They want to children. It is the kind of thing that should from them. That the children are not to be protected. Their children are secret. Therefore, why should we be teaching children? The whole idea that you can dress, you can show a little bit, not is going to be very good. So, just he said, was all the look like that. Substitutes for protection. Yeah, but what we do today that make our society better, our culture more significant, and more complete. So they are spoken about all of these things, about more of these things. Because the reverse matter, the youth are members of the society, they are in the future of the society. But if the beauty of it is being trapped upon by the lack of commitment to them that we talk about today. What we experience is what we get. You see, just again and again, at level of students, carefully. In fact, there's a place that Johann, condemned, he condemned, let me try and say it again, he said, he condemned massacre of Christians as far as in the early 80s. He called it massacre of Christians against, by the fundamentalists, and he didn't condemn himself for those who are fundamentalists. If the years talk about Christians of massacre before or Nigeria, go to and use the rest. John, for 5 years, is coming into Africa again. What is the connection? What is about this? What is the experience in this? In his works about how we should work respect life, how we should ensure that the youth are, we are able to work with development. How do we do that? It compares the fact that problems pay attention to themselves. It's about themselves and their interest. Why don't promote the role and the organization of society? What becomes that we have to create monsters which we have. Those who are determined and killing their parents, they are young boys and young guys. They're not old men, they're not children. Because the society has presented them to let them know that what are the causes of determined and kills by Judaism. Because we don't get this out. One of them is that government and presented their functions. Therefore, we see a young guy who is supposed to, talking about respect for life, respect for himself, and survival is thinking of how to keep, taking power, make money. And why do we see, taking of election next year? So, Japan, like I said, in the talk of the board center, exercise, all of those things, but then abortion is a fight. You see, abortion is a poison for to fight. And it wasn't I saying that those men that the church will allow foreign basis, to push us to the next abortion, then at the life what to do. Whether it was the level or not, if abortion and all those things are part of our existence, structuring and demeaning the human. So, in the fact, he doesn't try to find through his works, but we need to live a life that is defined, a life that promotes, your welfare of the eye and the out, a life that respects man and God, a life that brings society to the one situated that are true value for the good of all. So, that's very much for this symposium of the person. Talk about it.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dema. I know you would love to actually grab a full lecture on this. That can be subsequently up in my mind. But we appreciate your thoughts in terms of calling attention to the fact that there are actually Christian existentialists, Bishop Michael Fagun, in exploring especially human dignity when it comes to Christian thought patterns. He referred to 2 books, Book John Paul II and Benedict XVI. That's a Karl Wojtyla and Bishop Similar, who are well known for voicing out on this. Similarities between Bishop Fagun's thoughts and these books include emphasis on the family as the cradle of the society, and he linked this also with Aristotelian politics, which discusses different layers of components of equality as it were, and family being like the foundation of all of this. Going specifically to Bishop Fagun's thoughts, Dr. Dema was able to tell us about how Bishop Fagun was concerned about critical issues in society to which we are still battling today. The foreign position of abortion, being contrasted or being antagonized by people who feel that the right to life is very foundational when you talk about human dignity. And so they were the voice that against the evils of abortion and how this tries to undermine the meaning of human existence in the world today. This also means that man should not be considered as a means to achieve an end, but man should be considered in that sense as an end himself. And so that means we should respect every human person, not as a tool, but as something that you could derive essence from his very existence. But we talked about issues such as road safety, in which we're still having, this is actually a threat to making sufficient meaning out of human existence, in our own country, particularly. The infrastructure, for instance, the attitude, of drivers on the roads and stuff like that. We also spoke about cultural identity, which is something that Bishop Fagun was passionate about. Of course, that the Nigerian church was during the era large enculturation, how to infuse culture into worship. And so the foundation of this is also to have an authentic cultural identity that also goes beyond what we define our existence as humans. Lastly, we spoke about the religious aspect of it, historically documented the fact that the challenge of killings of Christians in the country is not something that is recent. It dates as far back as 40 years ago when he was speaking, perhaps beyond then, and he spoke about fanaticism in religion and how this undermines human existence. So thank you very much, Dr. Dema, for your wonderful submissions. Can we appreciate him once again? Now we have Mr. Araka, who is joining us virtually to make his own presentation. Yeah, I think his system is on. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you. I think I'm audible enough. Can you hear me?
I will try to present the system.
Okay. Yes, can you hear me now? Yes, can you hear me?
Okay. Okay, it's connected. Okay, can you try to speak?
Yes, good afternoon. Can you hear me? You can't hear me. Okay.
Sorry, if your watch Bluetooth is on, can you do us a favor? Very next 2 minutes. Okay, can you speak? Let's see what I can get.
Yes. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
If your watch okay, now can
Go on, please.
Yes, can you hear me now? Is it loud enough?
Please.
Hello?
Go on.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you, thank you. Can I go on?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to thank the organizers. I would like to thank Father Tolu, Father Eric, and Dr. Edema, everyone who has made this symposium a success today, because indeed it is success. Coming from a background of philosophy myself, I'm very happy that we can have our own philosopher, our own father, Baba. We are talking about the existentialist thread that is woven around his thoughts. I'm very grateful to everyone who has made this possible. So I would like to, like what Father Eric has said and what Dr. Edema has said also, splendid. They have really dissected something in Baba's philosophy, which, although if you read the random thoughts, you see Baba saying that he does not he doesn't want to claim, maybe out of modesty, that he has a philosophy, that he was bringing a philosophy, but that's philosophy. So I will, in my own style, I will try to bring out about 6 thematic movements I saw in his philosophy that will be very relevant for us. Now, the first one has to do with so I will, in my own now, existentialism has long been characterized as a philosophy of crisis. We all know the response to the death of God in Europe and the collapse of the sense of meaning after 2 world wars. And so you have philosophers, they started questioning, so asking questions. What is the essence of life? So much human suffering. Now, there's a difference when you look at essentialism that is not born out of a vacuum, because we have no world wars practically in the African continent, although Africa participated practically here. But then you are seeing a deep reflection that is being colored by theological education and then by his experience of post-colonial Nigeria. So he began his inquiry in a very, very interesting way by talking about the human person is to be pitied. That's the beginning. There are 2 beginnings of his thought, which I call essentialism. The first one is the human person is to be pitied. We see something similar to this from Arthur Schopenhauer, his pessimism, where he said that we are all driven by blind, insatiable force called the will. And this will leads us to endless desire and inevitable pain. When you read through Baba's work, you will see this issue of pain. He talks of pain and pleasure. Now, looking at this very well, you can see that he said that the human person ought to be pitied. Why must the human person ought to be pitied? Because human beings keep making various efforts, trying to get things, trying to be happy. But at the end of it, because of this strife that we participate in, get worn out. And this leads to what we call ennui. Ennui is mainly in the existentialist tradition. You get this from about Camus, you heard this from Barthes, you hear this from Gabriel Marcel. Ennui, even as Kierkegaard is also very loud on that also. But Baba's own existentialism has a sense of truth. This is the difference. He quite agrees that there is an existential weariness. When people are making effort, everybody is trying to be happy. And we see this concretely in our society today, where everybody is in a rush. People are hustling. People want to make at the cost of their mental stability, at the cost of resting, at the cost of psychological peace, all because people want to make ends meet. This is an aspect. But Baba now did a difference with it. He said that despite the situation the human person finds himself trying to make ends meet, once the human person is facing the enlightenment of Christ, there is a difference. Now you see the intersection of grace.
Sorry, Mr. Neka, can you wait a little so that we're trying to, the audio is not working very well here. Sorry. So that we'll be able to get the data. Just give us like. Okay. It's not.
No?
Sorry, please. Okay, it's connected now. The volume. I'm talking now, so you should hear it. I'm talking, so you should hear. Yeah. No, no. Let's just manage this. Manage it. Okay, Mr. You can try to make your continue your presentation. Sorry for yeah.
Okay, can you hear me better now? Yes, can you hear me better?
Yeah, please continue.
Okay. So, yes, I started with the demarcations I made. I made about 6 thematic demarcations. I've already spoken on the enigmatic condition, where he said that the human person ought to be pitied. The human person, is to be pitied. That's the word he used in the beginning of his random thoughts. And why? Because of the fact that the human person strives for happiness through various toiling, hard work. And the more the human person does that, only to encounter ennui. And I said ennui is a French existentialist word that means existential weariness. He himself made it clear that human beings encounter wear. And that is the question he asks. He was not asking that if the human person encounters this wear, what is the solution? For the solution for him is the enlightenment that is given by Christ. And then the concept of grace. The concept of grace from St. Augustine is woven all through his existentialism. And that is why I quite agree with Father Eric and Dr. Edema, who categorized him as a Christian existentialist. The fact that he didn't call himself put himself in that school of thought, but that is what we see from the thought system. The second thing I would like us to understand when we are trying to grapple with Bishop Fagun's existentialism is to understand his philosophical anthropology. That is to understand his philosophy of the person. He made a bold departure from Plato who said that the body, the human body, is a prison for the soul. Bishop Fagun categorically wrote it that there is no demarcation between the human body and the soul. And then you ask yourself, if there is no demarcation between the human body and the soul, then what is the difference? He left it as a mystery. The same thing as Gabriel Marcel with the mystery of man. He left it as a mystery. But this is my own interpretation of it. Why is that there is no demarcation between the human body and the human soul is to give dignity or to affirm the dignity of the human person. So that somebody will not say you are taking more of your soul than taking less of your body. He tried to create a balance. I heard Dr. Edema spoke also of the personalism of Karol Wojtyła, where the human person is not seen as a means to an end, but the human person is an end in itself. So Bishop Fagun toes that line also. He introduces the concept of the spiritualized body. And I will encourage our young philosophers to read on this, and you can write on this. He wrote it, Bishop Fagun wrote it, called it the concept of the spiritualized body. He said, unlike the animal, that's the beast of the field, maybe domestic animal, wild animals, the human person is a unified mystery. He does not understand himself. He has a lot of questions than answers. But the human person is different because the human person is created in the image and likeness of God. This aligns very well with the French existential phenomenologist Maurice Merleau-Ponty, who argued that we do not just have a body, we are embodied, we are the bodies. And the same thing with Gabriel Marcel, who said that I am my body. Not trying to say, okay, I will take care of my body more than my soul. I will take care of my soul more than my body. There has to be a balance. And I think that's what Christianity has made us understand. Even Catholic theology makes us understand that yes, there has to be the balance. And we can hear Pope John Paul, Karol Wojtyła also telling us then that some people can be so, they can be so connected to the work of the Lord than to the Lord of the work. Saying what that implies is that there is a balance. You have to create a balance between the body, make sure, because the body is your vehicle which you move in the world, and your soul. There has to be a balance. And that is, we see that also in Bishop Fagun, and that's why I termed it the metaphysics of the spiritualized body. However, he has a layer of Blaise Pascal's psychology to his own metaphysics of the spiritualized body to create this unity. He said that why we think that, yes, animals have their own bodies, their own system, he wasn't so focused about that. You now ask a question. Yes, there is a unity between the human body and the human soul. But why is it that the human body, the human person is so restless? Bishop Fagun said the reason for that is because we have the power of reflection. That is what we call the power of rationality. So because we have the power of reflection. So Kierkegaard, we call it anxiety, the dizziness of freedom. The dizziness of freedom. So because we have that power of reflection, sometimes you sit, you are not satisfied with your present condition. Sometimes you sit, you want to attain, you want to move higher. And I'm drawing this closer to the question somebody asked in the first session, that are there gradations in authenticity? I believe there are gradations because it's a process, the trajectory. The person, as you are trying to be authentic, it is not a one-day thing. And it is this anxiety or this dizziness of freedom, as Kierkegaard would call it, that takes you to that place. And Bishop Fagun said that because of this power of reflection and not being satisfied that we have this feeling like a dethroned king. This term, a dethroned king, you see it in Blaise Pascal's Pensées. It's a metaphor, it borrows from there. Pascal said, a peasant is not unhappy for not being a king. Only a king who has lost his throne feels the tragedy of his current state, and that is the human person. So you see these intercessions of various existentialist Catholic theological thoughts in Bishop Fagun. But for Fagun, he said that our very unhappiness now, because I said at the beginning, before the audio, we had audio issues, that there is always a strain of hope in Bishop Fagun's existentialism. He said our very unhappiness is the highest proof that we have a royal and divine origin. Because we know that this thing I'm supposed to be doing better than this. But you cannot do better than that if you are backing the light. And that light is Jesus, which he calls enlightenment. Now, from this theme, we now move to what I call the banal of stupidity, is political existentialism. This particular existentialism of his, I believe it was influenced by Hannah Arendt. I will just say something briefly about that. It now moved from the human person, the habits of the human mind, the everything, the thinking, the spiritualized body. It moved to the state. If you read through his random talk, you see a criticism of dictatorship and military government. He labeled them as primitives of today. Primitives of today. He said everyone is condemned to some form of stupidity. This is like what G. Possard said, man is condemned to be free. But his own is different. He said because we are partially knowing beings, we cannot know everything every time, all the time. So there is always that's Bishop Fagun talking now, we have trial and error. We learn from our mistakes. We learn from the mistakes of others. That is why I said this is where his own thoughts will now converge with Hannah Arendt's banality of evil. When Hannah Arendt was analyzing one of the Nazi generals after the Second World War, when they were taken to Nuremberg for trial, she was analyzing Adolf Eichmann. She coined the term banality of evil. She discovered that when they were talking to the general, she said, he's not a demonic mastermind, although some soldiers will say they were following orders. He said, no, it's not a demonic mastermind, but it's a man characterized by thoughtlessness, a man who has surrendered his power of reflection. He has surrendered his power of rationality, which is one of the highest gifts that God gives to the human person. And Bishop Fagun relates this also, that those who support dictatorship, those who support military government that use tyranny, that they have submitted their thoughtlessness and they are primitives of today. He identifies this same thoughtlessness in those who also practice might is right. Those who believe that with force they can do anything. Let's take it to our present Nigerian reality today, where people believe snatching the ballot box makes you the smartest person, where people think that fast money makes you the fastest person. You are a sharp guy, you are a smart man. No, what he's saying that the person is being thoughtless, the person is not using his rationality in line with Christ. Because remember, he said Christ gives enlightenment. So God has created the human person to be a special being, but the human person cannot achieve his purpose backing the light, backing enlightenment. So like Arendt, he said that those who use violence, those who encourage violence, they do that because they have surrendered their power, the power of reasoning, the power of collective reasoned action. They have submitted it. So for him, military rule or this political violence is not a sign of strength, but a retrogression into underdeveloped primitivity. And what is the solution? Authenticity, which is the enlightenment of Christ that can restore human rights to the individual and reclaim the public sphere from the stupidity of raw force. Then, the other theme I saw in his random thoughts is about toil, distraction, and joy. We know that because of what happened in Europe for many of the earlier existentialist philosophers, we saw that some descended into nihilism, like Nietzsche. Some descended into nihilism. It was when the Christians, like the Gabriel Marcel, the Emmanuel Mounier, Karol Wojtyła, and the rest, when they came into the system and they now said, okay, no, existentialism cannot stand on its own. It needs something, a foundation to stand on. And that is the same thing we will see from Bishop Fagun, because when you read his work, you see a thinker who's worried about things that are happening, but it does not do it with hopelessness. It does not do it with hopelessness. He said that life can be absurd, as Camus said. Life can seem not absurd, but life can be tragic. That's it. Life can be tragic, but he avoids this trap through a realistic medicine for the human person. He said many people think about the consolation of an afterlife, and some others want to just achieve it here and now. But then, Fagun makes us understand that no, distraction and amusement, yes, they can give you some sort of respite now, but they are not the final solution. We must find a way to be happy beyond this rock. It's just like the myth of, of Zisimus in Camus. Keep on rolling it, keep on rolling. They must find a means to be happy. And the way we find a means to be happy, he mentioned in one of parts of his work, he mentions prayer, he mentions dance, but the summit of it all is the enlightenment of Christ. Now, in conclusion, he also talked about death. For the secular essentialist, death is the nullification of all projects, it's the end of everything, the finality. But for Fagun, death is the gateway, in quote, to a greater life. He said that the fear of death is simply the fear of the unknown. But then he pointed to Christ. He said, Christ died because for human redemption and the hope of, and because of the power of the resurrection. He knew he was going to resurrect, and he knew that the death will redeem man. The same thing, the Christian martyrs, they jumped at death because Christ has already shown that death in itself is not the finality of all things. And for me, this is Fagun's version of Kierkegaard's leap of faith. By accepting death not as an end, but as a change for the better. That was his word, a change for the better. The human being surmounts the final horde of the human condition. So I think with this said, there are a lot of things in his philosophy, but with this few things said, I think Bishop Fagun is, if we are able to work on, to establish more on what he has written, is calling for a mental reorientation for us to use. And I will, just to take a bit of your time, just give me less than a minute. I would like to once again appreciate the organizers of this symposium and to encourage our young philosophers. You have a lot of wealth with you to use. This is Bishop Fagun, you have your provost, you have Dr. Edema here who have done a good job. I will encourage you, because we all started this way, I will encourage you to make good use of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anka, for wonderful insights. Sorry about the addiction regarding technology. But we're happy that we're able to listen to you. Just not to take much of your time, spoke about the contrast between Fagun and Plato when it comes to exploring the human person. Plato talks about the body being prison, of the soul, while Fagun postulates the idea of a spiritualized body, where one is to create the balance between nourishment and both, and so that in essence means that the body itself should be treated with transformed dignity, as we try to teach the mind and the soul. And that leads us to the idea of personal psychology that you said, to say that in spite of the challenges of living in search of human meaning, Bishop Fagun argues that we've been endowed with the power of reflection, the power of rationality, which comes with its responsibility. And so relates this to what we can call existential politics or political existentiality, where you talk about the use of reason to support rights. You understand? And if I heard you correctly, we are talking about people who support dictatorship, people who support vices and morality as people who have seeded their endowment of rationality for the wrong purposes, or who are not making use of this rationality to make enough meaning out of human existence. And in all of this, the rationality should not be based on anything physical, but on Christ, who is the source of enlightenment. Of course, that's why we regard him as a Christian existentialist. So you ended up by talking about death and its exploration of death, which should not be something that triggers agony, but should be looked towards as something that leads into a more meaningful life life that is filled with happiness. Thank you very much again for your contribution. Because of time, I think it's important to leave the floor open. I will also interject once in a while where there's need. So, if anyone asks questions, either online or online, you can go prefer like time so that you save us time. But once you can always do it. But also on the floor, we can have people make their contribution. Did I see Nathaniel's and is Nathaniel anywhere? Okay, Nathaniel, please, you can help us lead this discussion. Thank you very much.
So, good afternoon, everybody. I thank the moderator for giving me this opportunity to speak. And in the book of Bishop Fagun, I was given the section to reflect on his random jotting. This random jotting was just in this 7 section of the Bishop Fagun. This random jotting was just 77 section of Bishop Fagun because we're just trying to sit and then reflect on life physically on existentialism. And this work, what does it talk about? We're just trying to look at the human experience, moral teaching, faith practice, and in a sense, to see how Christians can live their daily lives with the common things they find themselves. So I'm just trying to summarize because of the time, just to summarize what I've reflected and see how we can put it into practice in our own day-to-day living with our brothers and sisters. So the random jotting resonates strongly with what we call faith-rooted existentialism, which we are heard from the first speaker down to this section. And how Christians are to live their life responsibly on that world. And in the philosophical sense, we can see that Bishop Fagun does not explain the situation himself within European existentialists like Kierkegaard and Jacob Sartre. His random jotting is repeated, confronted with leaders for urgency and decision making. And also one of the most striking decision quality of this random jotting. It emphasizes personal accountability in a world where individual frequently hides behind structures, institutions, culture, or collective identity. So what he was trying to emphasize here is that sometimes when we find ourselves in the society, we tend to blame certain people about a particular cause. Like if they ask you, why is Nigeria like this? You say yes, it's because our past leaders, they are the one that did this and that. But we should talk about this. Sometimes we should still hold ourselves accountable for certain things. We should not just look at our culture or our religion, saying, I'm a Christian, that's why it's this, I'm a Christian, and so on and so forth. So for fact, in either culture or modernity absorb the moral or individual agency of ourselves. Like in the African context, you could see that common values is not neglected from our society. And also not to romanticize this, we see in African context whereby parents try to teach their children what is essential, what they should do, and not neglect the fact that they also take responsibility of their life. Because sometimes they ask you, are all above 16, so therefore they are adults, you should do this, should do that, you are above 18, you should do that, you are due for marriage, When sometimes we don't fit in maybe to the society, maybe we are both a certain age that something is expected of you, the African society, to be responsible, to take charge of your life, and you see yourself wondering that you find yourself in somehow you're not at peace with yourself and you want to ask yourself, oh, why am I not doing this? That's what Bishop Michael was trying to say. That whenever we find ourselves in society, we should not just pull ourselves back and say, those who are at the front are the cause of everything, but also we should look down our real life and see how to take responsibility. Another round existential dimension of this round was lies in the treatment of some which we have the first speaker talking about suffering, struggle, and moral discomfort. In summary, what was Bishop Fagun saying about this? He said that faith as a refuge from pain. So therefore, we should not look at pain or failure as something that comes from God. Also, sometimes we still look at ourselves that maybe we are the cause of something or the pain or the struggle we find ourselves. So, in conclusion, to live truly and responsibly in the society, we ourselves are called to look at our inward self and see how faith resonates with reason and see how to resolve the condition we find ourselves and being of help to our brothers and sisters. So for Fagun, it's trying to tell us that we also can be a moral agent of making people realize that they also should take responsibility of certain actions in the society. Thank you.
Even though you cannot make this kind of prediction, but I'm not that.
Like it's very good. So we all the ground point to cross.
We're started the discussion by emphasizing the fact that the farmer can be regarded as different specialists, but he emphasized the fact of taking responsibility for every situation of that, including pain, and that he must live truly and responsibly. I mean, this is the core of the thing. To say that the essence of life might be hinged on existence, but our existence is for something that's better. So, if you have questions or contributions, can you please, in fact, I raise up your hand so that I'll just give numbers. And if you have from any of the panelists, you can actually direct a question to either Eric, Dr. Dema, or Mr. So, because of that, yeah, please, you have to come forward so that the camera can please come forward, sir. Please come. Yeah, any other person, come. Oh, there's good class. Come forward. Yeah. So we have 3 persons. Is there another person? You can see. Is there another person? Come forward. Yeah, I don't know. So just to take everybody because yeah, also come and sit here. So we'll start with the 4 of them. So we thought not to just stand so many that because of those analysis.
Okay, thank you so much. Michael Casey, a combo from year 3. How does 2 questions? 1, according to the Christian perspective, the essence of existence is salvation or no or self-God. And also, according to what Father presented in James Bosco, he noted that essence precedes existence precedes essence. And so I ask, does sin change its essence? Or does a pagan don't achieve the essence of this existence? Thus, beggars not achieve the essence of their existence. And also, the second question is, in a place where we live without free will based on family or cultural backgrounds, that means people live without their free will. They are determined to live based on where they come from, based on family grounds. So, how can you reconcile this with your family's free will or existentialism? Thank you so much. In a place where people are determined to live based on culture or family grounds, based on their values and all of that. How can we reconcile that with the idea of existentialism of your family or free?
Who is your question directed? Any of the
Okay.
the first one you asked about pagans and their whether they do their essence. Now, who's a pagan? That you are a pagan was it mean you don't believe in God? Right? So to a Christian, if you are a traditional worshiper, you are considered a pagan. But that does not mean you don't believe in God. I don't know whether you are with me. So when you are saying the pagan, how do you their essence? Their essence, as long as they believe in God, and you are looking at it from a Christian point of view, their essence is still that they have purpose in life. As they live every day through their existence, they are now realizing what they are meant to be in this life. So the fact of God belonging to a Christian or a Muslim does not mean that they cannot realize who are expected to know and decide. So the second one is about if I'm not mistaken. What's the second one? Okay, okay. We are followers of our culture. What is culture? Culture is a way of life. And so as you live in that culture, you are accommodating the identities of personalities of what you are all that. So as you grow, you are expected to be critical. You are expected to use your mind to judge, okay, to ask the right questions. Of course, you ask for the custodians of the culture, what is not clear to you, you ask them questions, and then from there, you are able to make the right choices for yourself. So your culture will in no way impede the use of your freedom. You still have to make use of your freedom as long as you are a human being to accept certain things. You have seen people going against the culture in which they were born. There are some of them in our culture, they are doing human sacrifice. When the person has attained a level of enlightenment, and say, oh, this should not be. Why should we sacrifice human beings to appease the gods? So at that moment, he's breaking away from what that culture has built over the years. And why is he doing that? Because he's exercising the freedom that the power of intelligence and then is now going to choose that I'm not going to be part of this kind of things. I'm going to choose this way of life. So we are breaking away. So that it does not in any way glorify your freedom, your culture. And so far, all does not have problem with that. That yes, the culture, know your culture, appreciate your culture, and at the same time, you have to make use of freedom in living your culture, also in the light of Christian values. Yeah, okay, that's good.
Great proposal scholars. So my name is Andrew. And first of all, I want to sincerely appreciate Father Eric and Professor Lema for presenting to us this results of the Bishop Michael Fagun. Now, I want to first of all rightly describe Bishop Michael Fagun as a Christian existentialist who sought a deeply rooted the dignity of human person as beautifully presented. Now, in the Nigerian context, where the value of human life is frequently violated and devalued, that is, in a Nigerian context, we have lost the sense of humanity, we have lost the sense of humanness through different manifestations such as abortion, terrorism, which has become the order of the day. Now, how can Bishop Fagun's Christian existential anthropology offer concrete responses to this crisis? And what practical, moral, and social solutions does his thoughts propose for restoring the sense of human dignity in Nigerian society?
Thank you. Okay, my name is question everyone. Mine is just based on a kind of clarification. So I want to ask if I would be in mind to say Bishop Fagun's existentialism, in as much as he's against the rigorous aspect of the spirituality, can his existence be compared with, as you can see that he finds existence himself and the end point of his existentialist is grounded on collective well-being of others. So the collective well-being of others are references from what he said in his book that he takes the family as a character of society. So I don't think we can add a conclusion that existential theology is grounded in existential communitarianism.
Okay, thank you very much for those very intelligible questions. Let me answer the first question. The answer, yes, to the question is already been answered. What do I mean? One, is ideas are now in the public space for you and I to be digest and practice. You see, because the all that was happening, and what you are doing there to this institute, what you are doing there is to further teach and tell us that we need to propagate these things that are negating human values, terrorism, abortion, nuclear, and we are very good. The church has just had a conference, church conference last year, analysis, and they spoke very deliberately against all of those analyses. The answers, the question, the answer, like the church conference, like various conversations within the Catholic Church and outside the Catholic Church by telling the government and those responsible for managing our lives in terms of our lives to do more in terms of protecting human lives. And the other two, in our own different spaces, we have a duty to teach the younger generations the meaning of life, life, protect life. You are all, if I'm not mistaken, you are all of us assignments. What do you teach the youth? What do you tell them here when you come from that? What do you tell them? These are the things you tell them. To younger girls, by your writings, you publish journals, you are relying, you are seated on Facebook Live. What do you tell them for live podcast? You don't have no podcast here, what's the why? And talk big issues. And you're also there are not debates here. These are issues. We talk who is bigger than who's around. That's not a problem. The problem is how do we define human values? You are already doing that here. Just as the leader. You cannot keep up. That is from my job today. It's only once. I was thinking about Mr. Pasaka as far as any age. What the government is denying. Somebody is already saying that. And Trump and others are saying this happening. And yet, they're not denying the obvious. But they cannot deny everybody. So the answers to the question are blamed every day. Just want to now do more as Christians who are being trained in the Catholic institution like the Bosco or the seminary or like the religion. We need to know, talk to ourselves, talk to youth, engage them, meaningful discussion. Not important. The second one is about whether these ideas can be considered material. Yes, it is. Because you have to be seen as an individual, because as a leader shows for a community of people in the state or in southwest region, contrary to the blue and the state. And what they are addressing during the church was addressing everybody, because if you look at his works, you see that they come across the regulators and the regulators, because what is the Christians alone was everybody space, diocese, those states, the old those states, and so it was talking to everybody, trying to remind them of the fact that we are after society, after values are really capital value. And that's why it was strong against the law of knowledge that you should be careful in the way you bring in foreign justice in promoting abortion and all these things. And it wasn't talking again, was referring to different people. And so by the session, his ideas are considered that was credible and wrong. And everybody spends time upon it, telling philosophy stuff about proper when they right. Not to themselves, but to their society. You know, bring them closer to Christ and to the gospel. And it's like very possible. Contemporary but I think it's ideas resonate with people, but the communal understanding and after science community, and if you don't like that, therefore we have to get that from this talks around this.
Thank you. Thank you, Father Professor, for so far. So far, I want to discuss that from Bishop Fagun's existentialism as moral is morally completely wrong. And most importantly for Bishop Fagun is to understand all the first question now would be that we actually have moral agents whose minds are abnormal. That's the first one. Then the second one is I'm coming from the perspective of psychology now. Now, what would be the functions of the id, the ego, and the superego in existentialism? Okay, starting on this, mine is just a contribution to all what I can say, particularly a great concern, because we cannot just stop and theoretically talk about the concepts of existentialism in terms of Bishop Michael, relating some of them to contemporary society. Looking at this idea and the core concepts of existentialism, both from the secular perspective and from the Christian perspective, I see that there's an underlying connection on the idea of authenticity, both from the Christian and that of the secular, although they have different approach as regards to the issue of authenticity. And looking at our society today, particularly in Nigeria, it is a great problem for us, the issue of authenticity. Basically, in how we relate with one another, in how we relate to the social environment, in terms of politics, in terms of how we run our petty business, in terms of how we relate to ourselves individually. And I've come to also realize that if you take the path of a Christian or you take the path of the secular approach to the idea of existentialism, not too much argument on is it as existence precedes essence or either essence precedes existence. The issue here is that if we can be conscious of this, aspect of contextualism, we can be conscious about it. And for the Christian existentialists, they believe that the Savior states the purpose for our being here, the essence is, relying on God. If we can be conscious about it, we can also find this thought in the works of Augustine when he says our hearts are not restless, it's restful. If we can be conscious about all this, our actions and what we do in society will be different towards living an authentic life. And also the part of the secular is intentionalist. They also particularly as we spoke about being towards death. And for him, we believe that our consciousness towards a being that okay is going to die. It helps him to begin to live an authentic life. Even the English was talking about the Superman always believes that for you to live an authentic life, there are so many contradictions, there are so many things that you have to overcome to be able to live that life. Although they have different things in terms of this, in terms of the average. But my own concern particularly is for us to be conscious about our authenticity, what we do, how we live our life, social media, physically, how we relate to ourselves, and all what we our engagers in life. Because one way or the other, maybe Christian pagan also have all the things.
Thank you very much. So, looking towards panelists to provide answers. But why I sometimes just one or two. Okay, no more question. Okay. That's fine. It's fine. Well, if you have a question, don't mind me like that. Come forward and answer. Okay, yeah. I don't think that is possible. What's your awareness? This is talk about if only get someone has a specific one thinking for making choices now. So they can't be making choices on one state. Some of us have applied this knowledge. So it is make it a very personal job. Beyond that, what should knowledge means that something that is already there. There's no fact. Tell me that you are taking over ideas, teachers, learners, that is a debate that not the right or the devil wrong. But as far as the that what are those actions that make your actions immoral? What are those things that you do that make an issue? Mostly it includes having the other. Even having yourself, you can have a issue. You're talking about that doesn't mean from yourself. No, you are already a main person, already an authentic person. Therefore, what I want to do can be authentic or inauthentic. Is it clear? It's not only about super ego. If they are essential concepts about the mean, those are the concepts in psychology, which also cannot be considered related. They are related to existentialism too, because if you look at the history of psychology, how it evolved for philosophy, you see some strong elements of existentialism in psychology. In fact, some of psychologists are also considered existentialists. Therefore, because of the context and how they are used those concepts to describe certain human actions, the context and the environment are going to shape that thought. Super ego, so that of existentialism is some kind of, we are all selfish. What makes us different, or what makes us consider
common for very people, just kind of character. You almost supposed to, because you consider, that I'm not alone in this world. You are alone, you're like that kind of people, I and the other. If you have yourself, that I mean the other, and all of this is able to issues in applied ethics. You see how already we are from psychology to existentialism to applied ethics, and that is why all of them can put on faith as existentialism or ethics or psychology, because they are people with this process that you need to explain this kind of system. I hope you understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Also, you should remember, even when Locke talks about terminals, that is, you are born with the mind like a state. The moment you start living, you are feeling the plan, information that being put there, and this is what is shaping. So there is no way we act as a moral agent that will act out of the plan mind. Because by the virtue of your existence, you have already acquired informations that will guide your actions. Okay? And then I think the purpose of that somewhere is short satisfied. The ego generally is your desires, not satisfied. The super ego is really tired now, analyze the ideas, what you hold, and how do you reconcile them. And it's all about living life. You have so many desires as you are existing, and you satisfy all of them, you have to move higher. So to look at which one is more appropriate for me, and then you go for those that are aligned with your ideas. Okay, and then my friend also talks about the authentic life. The authenticity is present in every aspect of our life. Whether you are, those of you now, you have different name on social media, and we are calling is the authenticity. So you see that. So you have to be authentic in all situations, in all circumstances, so there will be no contradiction in who you are. So if you are here and you are there, it's the same person. And what makes you always aligned with your actions and environment. So on this note, we want to say thank you to all of you for your patience. I know you are tired and hungry already. Something small to bite after this. And also the very special, we want to thank our director, Dr. Philip. We want to thank him. The idea was there to have symposium, and when it came, that he asked, can we do something on Bishop Park? Then we have to jump on it and plan together. So thank you so much, the doctor. Very good, it was wonderful. This is not your hands together. I'm not sure about the prof service available. Our professor is always ready. We have to give yesterday to be here to join us. The prof, thank you for people of strength. And also as we walk around, always no bad things will come your way in Jesus' name. God of us, thank you. So by the service of God, we are making a decision. It will be an annual event that every year we have symposium, and we will try to make it African, focusing on African thinkers and to amplify their ideas, and then we also will learn from it. And those of you who are in second year, you have a place to write your longest now. If you don't have topic yet, Bishop Fagun is an example of a thinker you can consider for your longest. There are many aspects, just identify and write something. Those in there cannot change their topics anymore. So you learn. So thank you, and we will now conclude the second half. Okay.
Yes, so before the final prayer, please, for the ones after the program, who arrange the white chairs for the year one students, the white chairs behind the space, behind those space, there's a door. So please, after the closing prayer, only the white chairs. One for the year two students, we shall take the class and these other bigger chairs back to the places where we brought them. The class just close to the library and the other chairs, the bigger one to the